Don't suffer for your art. I feel like every creative person has heard this at least a dozen times in their lives, and if you're anything like me, you ignore it completely. How can you not? In the face of a hustle culture world that constantly tells us to sacrifice everything for our passions, and that if we aren't giving our all to something 24/7, then it must not really be that important to us. So, like, what other response is there? Well, here's one. Studio Ghibli's Whisper of the Heart, based on the manga of the same name, is a glimpse of the budding romance between a pair of middle school students, Shizuku and Seiji, as they grapple with the all-too-real circumstances most creative space, discovering their artistic voice, battling creative block, and the frustration of recognizing good work, but not yet being able to achieve it yourself. And yet throughout all of the turmoil of their creative suffering, they still find joy in their art. Whisper of the Heart is comfort food for artists, right? It's no coincidence that the hugely popular lo-fi hip-hop beats to study and relax to girl was directly inspired by Shizuku getting lost in her work, creating a vibe that, I don't know, just feels cozy and nice. However, compared to the other films in Studio Ghibli's library, Whisper of the Heart feels much smaller in scale. There are no grand battles for the fate of the natural world, there's no evil foe and a floating castle to defeat. Their parents aren't even turned into pigs, as far as I know. There are really only like a handful of fantastic sequences as Shizuku is writing her first novel, and even the way that the movie is packaged up tries to convince you that this is how the whole film is gonna be, when in actuality, the story is so grounded and raw that uplifting moments feel so triumphant you could rocket into the stratosphere on pure joy alone.
Shizuku, I love you!
And in contrast, the somber moments cut devastatingly deep. I'm convinced that this film will either inspire you to chase after your dreams or diminish your desire to do so altogether. But that's not really a criticism of the movie at all. On the contrary, its strength, I feel, is how it delivers a kind, guilt-free message about being an artist enthralled by the pursuit of your passion. It's a message that says, yes, passion is a powerful, motivating force, but following it single-mindedly always comes at the cost of your health, your responsibilities, and your relationships. Passion is suffering. And maybe it's time we stop romanticizing that suffering. Whew. All right, good take. I think I'm done with this setup, and I need to do like 6 other shots for this video at least. So, good stuff. I never learn anything. This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Get access to my streaming video service Nebula when you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description. Also, Studio Ghibli is pretty notorious for copyright striking any and all videos that even passively mention that their movies exist, so I can't really use too many clips from Whisper of the Heart in this video essay about Whisper of the Heart, at least not here on YouTube. But the true cut, the director's cut, the Scott cut, if you will, that'll be up on Nebula, the way that I intended people to watch it. We'll talk more about Nebula and CuriosityStream later. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing right now. I will later in the video, though, so look forward to that. In 1970, when songwriters Bill Danoff and Taffy Niver were originally crafting the song Take Me Home, Country Roads, their intention was to sell the piece to Johnny Cash. However, that plan changed on December 29th of that year, thanks to a car crash. Niver and Danoff were not just songwriters, but also a husband and wife pop band duo. While they'd later make up part of the Starlight vocal band,
Afternoon Delight.
At this moment in time, their duo was known as Fat City, and their biggest gig was opening at the cellar door for the headlining act who was still relatively fresh in his career, a 27-year-old John Denver. This means that I am currently older than John Denver was when he was about to hit the peak of his career. Good information for my brain to latch onto forever. and compare myself against. That's great. Glad I looked that up. One night after a show, Denver, Danoff, and Niver were all headed back to the couple's apartment for a little jam session when they got into a collision that left Denver's thumb broken. Shaken up by the chaos of the night, Denver couldn't really sleep. The three musicians still wanted to spend the evening fiddling around with their music, but Denver obviously was unable to play his guitar along with them. So instead, Niver and Danoff played their rough draft of Take Me Home, Country Roads for their injured pal, who instantly and enthusiastically became enamored with it. No one got any sleep that night. They all stayed up until 6 a.m. adjusting lyrics and playing with the flow until the song took form. It was clear to everyone that the song, it couldn't go to Johnny Cash like they initially planned. No one was more passionate about this song than John Denver was, to stay up all night with a broken thumb after hearing it just once to try and get it perfect. He wanted desperately to have the song on his next album, and no one could fight him on it. How could they? The song was released in the spring of 1971 on John Denver's 5th studio album, Poems, Prayers, and Promises, which was a tremendous breakthrough album for the artist thanks to the slow and steady success of Take Me Home, Country Roads. Initially, the song wasn't very popular at all, but Denver kept pushing it, kept telling people to keep pushing it, keep playing it. He was so passionate, he knew that it was gonna be the next big thing. And to his credit, it was. Less than 2 years later, Olivia Newton-John covered the song, making it a massive hit in the UK and an even bigger hit in Japan. It's this version of the song that launches us into the Studio Ghibli 1995 masterpiece, Whisper of the Heart.
Country roads, take me home to the place I belong.
Whisper of the Heart centers around a young girl named Shizuku who is always lost in fairy tales. She reads more than anyone else in her grade, except for maybe this one mysterious boy named Seiji Amasawa, whose name she keeps finding in the library books she checks out. Shizuku wants to be a writer, but the only thing she's ever written are lyrics that riff on, you guessed it, Take Me Home, Country Roads. Shizuku keeps writing and rewriting the lyrics to try and transform it into a graduation song, but no matter how many of her friends say that they like what she's written, she hesitates to believe them.
It's great, Shizuku. I love it. The lyrics aren't too corny? No, they're wonderful.
Then, one boring day, Shizuku's sister sends her on a regular, tedious errand, nothing exciting at all. But on the train, she discovers an adorably chubby kitty named Muta and decides to follow him around town out of curiosity. It's a journey that takes her all over the city to new places that she never knew existed, full of breathtaking sights.
What a gorgeous neighborhood. I never knew there was a place like this up here.
Every time she visits this part of town, she's blown away by the beauty of it all. And I mean, I am too. It's in these moments that the delicate and complex artistry of Studio Ghibli's animators really shines, displaying a masterclass of craftsmanship in building a modern world that feels alive. Gorgeous multi-plane shots feature layers of the cityscape which pan at slightly different rates and create a mesmerizing illusion of depth as Shizuku wanders about this Tokyo suburb. Dense crowd shots bring to life the city's pedestrians, cars, trains, bikes, and so much more in the most minute detail. The film also heavily uses the ma, or the negative space, that the studio is well known for, as seen in the frequent extended scenes of Shizuku traversing the city. These montages always last a little bit longer than you would expect, and it all builds to a film that, despite its modern setting, creates a fantasy of its own and allows the cityscape to become another supporting character in Shizuku's story. It's here she stumbles into an antique shop by which she instantly becomes entranced. The shop itself represents a source of artistic inspiration, or a muse. Not only is it literally where Shizuku finds inspiration for her writing, but the shop is said to keep strange, inconsistent hours, being closed more than it's open. As Shizuku travels back to the antique shop throughout the film, she's often disappointed by her inability to access it. And I think if you're an artist or a creative person in any capacity, you can probably relate to that feeling. While the shop owner, Shiro Nishi, is a warm and delightful older fellow, twist of all twists, Shiro Nishi's grandson is revealed to be the Seiji Amasawa, whose name has been in all of the books that Shizuku keeps checking out. Seiji teases Shizuku a little, and she initially thinks that he's a jerk, but the two start to grow closer as he explains that he too is an aspiring artist. Seiji is an amateur violinist, but what he really wants to be is a master violin maker. He's been practicing for years, but no amount of compliments from Shizuku or anyone else around him will ever shake his belief that he's not nearly good enough to achieve his dream. So already you can probably see how similar these two characters are. Seiji toils over his craft, only ever focusing on how much he has yet to learn and ignoring any external praise that he gets from others, like Shizuku, who constantly expresses how impressed she is by him. Meanwhile, Shizuku is constantly reassured by her friends that her writing is spectacular and literally everyone else at school thinks that she's talented, but all that she can see is how far behind she is compared to where Seiji is in his art. And here is where we get the conflict of the film. Seiji gets an opportunity to study under a master violin maker in Italy, which is great news, but it does come with two catches. Firstly, he only gets 2 months to prove himself under his new mentor, and if he doesn't have what it takes, then Seiji has to return home and focus on school full time. However, if he proves to be a skilled apprentice, then Seiji will have to spend all of his time studying in Italy, which presents another problem. Italy and Japan, where the characters are currently, are not exactly next-door neighbors. So, right as these characters are starting to grow closer and fonder of each other, Seiji has to take off to another continent for at least 2 months, and if he's successful at his craft, then potentially all months. Understandably, Shizuku and Seiji are both saddened by this idea of not being able to see each other much anymore, but they both, without hesitation, know that Seiji at least needs to try and chase his dream. If anything, this inspires Shizuku to use the same 2 months to pursue her passion.
That's what I'll do. I'll try being a writer. I've already got a story. I've got 2 months to see what I can do.
Throughout the film, she laments how she wants to write a novel, but all she can manage to write are song parodies. But it's actually in her lyrics where we learn why she hasn't been able to write her first book. Country road may lead me home. No, I belong there all on my own. Destiny calls, motionless I stall. No, I can't go country road. She's scared. Shizuku sees a path to choose her passion, but is petrified to act on it. When she learns that Seiji is going off to improve his craft, she calls him brave for going after his dream. It's the courage that she's never had until now. While Seiji is off making it in the violins, I don't know. The floodgates of Shizuku's creativity finally open, and she starts writing her first fantasy book. And when she writes, everything blacks out around her. The world outside of her book doesn't exist. She stays up late writing instead of sleeping, she slacks on her chores, she stops eating meals with her family, and her grades take a nosedive. Amidst all of this, though, she can't even bring herself to tell her family about the book that she's writing. I don't think she ever tells them in the entire movie that she's writing a book.
You have something that you're doing that you think is more important than studying? Will you tell us what it is?
When I can tell you, I will.
She's unlocked the courage to create, but she's still anxious about anyone ever reading her book. And that anxiety comes out in full force in the most heartbreaking scene in the movie. Shizuku makes a deal with Shiro Nishi that he will be the first person to read her book. Now, she wasn't planning on showing anyone her book, but since her story was inspired by Shiro's antique shop, and specifically one of his antiques known as the Baron, she agrees. He can read her book. So when that time comes to hand over her draft, she insists that he rapidly skim over it in one sitting, while she hides away in another room quietly suffering from an anxiety attack. And likewise, this is where I go when I post a new video. I will be here the moment this video is posted. I just like to pretend that I don't exist for a bit, and the weighted blanket is lovely. The floodgates burst open when Shiro finishes the book and tells Shizuku that she did a fine job for her first try. This doesn't make any sense to Shizuku. She knows her novel inside and out. It is impossible for her to be oblivious to all of the mistakes that she sees. Shiro's review is blatantly wrong. Her book is awful. How could it be anything but awful?
It's a mess. The storyline goes all over the place. All the characters' dialogue sounds corny. You have to tell me the truth. I know it's a complete disaster.
Even as Shiro attempts to comfort her, Shizuku breaks down completely.
I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be crying. I wanted so badly to do a good job, but there's so much that I don't know about writing. And Seiji, he's so much more accomplished than I am.
And this is the paradox of passion. How can something that ignites immeasurable joy in our lives also fill us with insurmountable dread? I think the answer lies in the original definition of the word. Passion comes from the Latin passio, meaning simply suffering. I hate to be the one to break this news, but the Passion of the Christ was not about how much fun Jesus was having on a cool weekend with his 11 good buddies. People would later use the word passio to describe the idea of braving something outside of oneself, like being afflicted by disease or the desire to do bad sins. So you can kind of see how we got to a modern definition today, right? Being tormented by the desire to sin turned sexual real quick, largely thanks to that horn dog Shakespeare. Over time, the word started to be used to describe any emotion that has a robust, unyielding grip on you, being so enthralled in this force that you feel as if you lose your agency in the compulsion brought on by this passion. And again, this term was primarily used to describe bad things, like a crime of passion, being used to describe the sudden impulse to do some murders, even if it wasn't on your agenda that day. I'm not sure when passion began to describe artists and creativity, but it feels pretty recent. In olden times, for example, painters wouldn't just paint whatever inspired them that day, they would paint whatever their patrons told them to paint. Composers would write music that their patrons told them to write, and I only make videos that my patrons tell me to make over at patreon.com/NerdSync, link in the description. Just kidding, you actually get no say in the videos that I make, but I do genuinely appreciate the support. This channel is purely at the mercy of my passion and my neurodivergency. And just as an aside, I think it's kind of interesting how the tables have fully turned. Like, nowadays, if you did just make art because someone paid you to make art, then you would be like selling out, whereas that was the common practice back in the day. Like, that's what being an artist meant. I feel like someone could make a video about that. Maybe someone already has. I don't know. My point is, if you are a creative person who has ever been overtaken by inspiration, it can feel exactly like that, being overtaken. You do what this force drives you to do, potentially enduring depression, anger, frustration, isolation, sure, but at the end of the day, it's the only thing that you want to do. Speaking personally, when I'm in the heat of a project, I'm overcome with anxiety, stress, and frustration. Then, if that video doesn't perform well, I spend a couple of days lost in deep depression. It's gotten so bad that my partner Emily has occasionally questioned if I even like making videos. And I do. I really do. It brings me suffering, but I don't want to do anything else. Whisper of the Heart captures this paradoxical emotion perfectly. When Shizuku is writing her book, she can't stop thinking about it, telling her friends about it, and researching new ideas for it. All she wants to do is write. But when she finishes her book and shares it with Shiro, she's whelmed by fear and sadness and anxiety that all come with being so vulnerable. It's a difficult path to pursue, as her father cautioned earlier in the film.
All right, Shizuku, go ahead and do what your heart tells you. But it's never easy when you do things differently from everyone else.
But even the reluctant support of Shizuki's parents is met with guilt tripping from her sister Shiho, who may as well be the exact opposite of Shizuku.
Dad let you have your own way, but he really wants you to study hard and get into a good high school.
I know that.
Shiho is the daughter who went to school, works 2 jobs, does most of the chores and housekeeping for the family, and expects Shizuku to follow that same path. Nearly every moment of Shiho in this story is spent telling Shizuku to clean more, cook more, study more, just do the same things that she does, so that Shizuku can support herself and, eventually, the family. So when she deviates from that path, Shiho scolds her. And more than anyone, Shiho notices how much of her sister's life is falling to the wayside as she chooses her dream. And that's the huge disparity, this juxtaposition between these two characters. Shiho forgoes her time and energy to help her family, while Shizuku forgoes her family for more time and energy to pursue her passion. And this, I think, is where Whisper of the Heart was way ahead of its time, right? I mean, here we have 2 characters who are representing 2 seemingly contradictory stances in our current culture. We are told to get on that hustle culture Sigma grind set 25-8. Did you know that John Denver stayed up all night with a broken thumb from a car accident riding country roads? I mean, #work, #no excuses, #John Denver was a girl boss. And if you can't make time for something you're passionate about, then you're not actually passionate about it. A popular motivational YouTube guru told me that once, and it was the most demotivating thing I think I've ever heard. But they also cream their pants over Gary Vee, and their latest video as of this recording is how cool and good Jordan Peterson is, so I'm glad I didn't listen to him. At the same time, however, we are also told by some of the exact same gurus and motivational speakers to strive for a life of balance. Work-life balance, everything in moderation. Don't suffer for your art. So, like, which is it? You know, do we go all in on our passions at the detriment of everything else around us? Or do we try and seek balance of some kind? Whisper of the Heart gives us the only reasonable answer to this question. I don't know. Do you know? It's not helpful. You are cute, though. I think I'll keep you. Do you want to lay down? You can lay down. I need more weight. More weight on top of this weighted blanket. I'm Giles Corey. More weight. Yeah. I love it. The truth is, our time, attention, and energy are limited. The more passionate we become about any one pursuit, the less of ourselves we have to offer to everything else. But again, this is not necessarily a good or bad thing. It just is. Shizuku and Shiho may argue about their respective outlooks on life, but at the heart of their fight is something more straightforward yet more profound. The problem is not that Shizuku is sacrificing everything around her to pursue her passion. If she wants to do that, that's on her. The film tells us that. The problem is that she may have gotten so swept up in the inertia of her passion that she never even stopped to evaluate the things that she is sacrificing. Now let me just make myself look sexy. Whisper of the Heart was adapted for the screen by Hayao Miyazaki and directed by Yoshifumi Kondo. Before his time at Ghibli, Kondo was already an anime veteran with decades of experience from projects such as Lupin III and Future Boy Conan. I've never seen any, like, Lupin sort of thing, but I think that's how you pronounce it. It's not like a Lupin, is it? I thought it was like a Lupin. Like a very French, like, wow. However, Kondo's big break came at Nippon. There's another, how do I say this one? Nippon Animation? Let's go with that. It's there Kondo's talents collided with rising stars Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata. And the reason those names are important is because they would co-found Studio Ghibli. In 1987, after the success of the film Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind and Castle in the Sky, Kondo joined Studio Ghibli, working on Takahata's tragic Grave of the Fireflies, then serving as a concept designer and animation director on Miyazaki's beloved Kiki's Delivery Service. It's my favorite of all of them. If I had to pick one, That's mine. For 8 years, Kondo worked at Ghibli in various key roles on several of their most popular releases. His role as an animation director for 1991's Only Yesterday and 1992's Porco Rosso fully solidified his reputation as an invaluable member of the studio's head creative helm. Kondo had become well recognized for his attention to detail and the level of care in which his artistry added in supporting the story's narrative. This recognition came at a time of extreme growth for the studio and positioned Kondo as a frontrunner to eventually succeed in the studio's leadership. With this trust in mind came the opportunity for Kondo to take the helm on an upcoming feature with screenplay and storyboard led by Miyazaki. The movie would be called Whisper of the Heart. Kondo had long wanted to make a film like Totoro, but without Totoro, with just adolescent children as the protagonists. I wish I could do it, and in that sense, I'm really happy to be able to make this anime. I think in many ways the film serves as a metaphor for Kondo's own rising status within Studio Ghibli and the culmination of a lifetime's pursuit of what he loved, following one's dreams and the dedication that it takes to realize those dreams. Sadly, Whisper of the Heart was Kondo's one and only outing as director of a feature-length film. In 1998, at age 47, only 2.5 years after the film's release, Kondo died from a heart aneurysm, occurring not long after wrapping production on Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke. The Japanese animation industry's notorious working hours and conditions was brought under heavy scrutiny. Despite Miyazaki and Takahata's reputation for fighting to improve the industry and attaining increased wages for members of the community, a controversial new book by Ghibli producer Toshio Suzuki acknowledged the excessive pressures of working for Ghibli and how that may have contributed to Kondo's untimely death. And seeing this tragic cost of overworking at the studio, Miyazaki announced his first retirement in 1998 after the release of Princess Mononoke. In his eulogy for Kondo, Miyazaki reflected back on their time in the animation industry together and the tireless artistry he had come to know from his colleague and his friend. Although it has changed in its form as the time went by, Whisper of the Heart was definitely the work by which we, in our 20s and 30s, had wanted to make someday. I can't forget one scene which Kanchan did when he was young. It's a scene in Future Boy Conan where the hero laughs to cheer the heroine up. Being very tired from the long work hours, he drew it half unconscious, crouching over his desk with his long legs folded. Still, the expression of the boy was really cheerful, full of gentleness and consideration. It was a really great picture. He was hospitalized right after I offered him another job together. He accepted it with his usual murmurs. I can't say anything other than that. I'm sorry. I really regret it. It's clear that Miyazaki cared deeply for Kondo. They were creative friends, supporting each other and encouraging one another to constantly improve their craft. And you can see those same themes in Whisper of the Heart. Shizuku and Seiji, Kondo and Miyazaki, heck, even Danoff and Niver when they were writing Country Roads. It's this idea of creative people who come together to bolster each other up through self-doubt and anxiety and push each other to do better and be better at their craft. And this is why Whisper of the Heart resonates with me so much. You may not know this, but I am not the only video creator in this one-bedroom apartment, and no, I'm not talking about Sparta's drama channel that he keeps trying to get off the ground. Emily had her own YouTube channel years ago discussing animation, from Steven Universe to Studio Ghibli films. She also introduced me to Studio Ghibli films, so if you've been upset with my pronunciation of Ghibli for this entire video, it's her fault. I'm throwing her under the bus immediately. She even made a video 6 years ago, before we ever met, all about Whisper of the Heart. So, you know what? Go check out that video, because she still has $60 in unpaid AdSense, and YouTube doesn't let you cash it out unless you have at least $100 in AdSense. So they're just sitting on her well-earned $60, and we want to bank that, please. Thank you, YouTube. Emily is also a writer, a poet, an Emmy Award-winning artist even, so needless to say, Whisper of the Heart means a lot to both of us. But I think when we watched it together for the first time, I may have taken the wrong message away. So, like, watching the journey of Shizuku and Seiji, I became more mindful of how much Emily does to support me in my video work, but then I felt like I wasn't doing anything nearly to that level to support her and her creative passions. So I started to encourage her to write more poems and submit articles to publications and even maybe get back into making YouTube videos. But that isn't what she wanted. And I don't want to speak for her, so here's Em in her own words.
Look who I found. Look who I found. So no one ever talks about this cutie, but this is Punky. Say hello. She kind of looks a little bit like Muta.
Would you like some company?
I am not in pursuit of the greatest memoir. I am not chasing down stardom or a story. Somehow this lack of direction in my creative life and work feels less like a failure and more like a change. I've always kind of had this voice in my head telling me to jot down an idea or to keep time with an essay or reflect with a poetic verse. But over the last few years, that voice has gotten smaller as my focus has turned away from self-interests and into my career-oriented work, because how else could I support myself? Then again, I look to Scott and see he's doing the exact opposite that I am. Your voice box is a muscle. It can stress, strain, and flex and maneuver just like any other muscle in your body. Without use, that muscle is going to atrophy and die, unable to maneuver even the tiniest bit in the direction of your choosing. For so long, I've been afraid that I will become a writer who doesn't know how to write anymore. My muscles sorely out of shape and anxious that I won't remember the maneuvers to get it done. Meanwhile, I'd watch Scott, who is out to perfect his voice, shaping it into beautiful noises that reflect the growth and time it took to cultivate it through the years. It's highly enviable, but so much of what Scott does is not. Whenever I look at Scott, his passion and drive for his craft can be so all-consuming that it has to happen. He'd walk over hot coals if it meant the video would improve in some marginal way. That's the kind of difficult birth I've witnessed for every single video he's produced since we've met. Watching your partner pick themselves clean for their vision is utterly wrenching, especially when your own talents and interests do not connect fully to their desired creation. The only thing I've ever felt equipped to do amid the crushing momentum forward is to support his vision in the background. I'll help edit the scripts, set dress, put the lens in focus. The thing a lot of people don't realize or maybe don't appreciate is just how much of a one-man army Scott is, and for me, it can be upsetting to sit and wonder if he prefers it that way. I've told Scott over and over again, especially when he's feeling overwhelmed by everything he wants to accomplish, that he is the easiest person to root for, because at the heart of it all, even if sometimes it feels like a fluttering heartbeat, he believes in himself, genuinely, unabashedly. He wants what he has to share with you, his audience, to matter. And so of course it has to matter to me because I love him. A few Christmases ago was probably the hardest time for us, as Scott completed his entirely too long essay about Bob Ross. He'd ended up working through the night for several days on end. He tried not to wake me even when he couldn't work anymore, because by then I'd often fallen asleep, and he was successful all until I crawled into bed. By then I'd sleepily wrap my arms around him and whisper through my haze how happy I was that he was there. I'd peck his forehead, dotting it with kisses and assurances that I was fine because he needed me to be okay. In truth, it was painful. It was really fucking painful. And equally maddening that he was constantly reassuring me, it'll be done by tonight. And then the next day it was more of the same. I couldn't stand having promises whispered to me in the morning and then broken by midnight for days on end. It was also right around the holidays, with several important dates set with friends and family that were jeopardized because of his workload. It was crushing knowing that the one thing that I wanted was for his video to be completed, and the only thing that I couldn't assist with was this very task. Part of this, I believe, was exacerbated by Scott's ADHD, which was undiagnosed at the time. His ADHD diagnosis has been a new challenge in understanding how his brain processes the world around him. It's been a challenge for me too. As our time in our relationship has moved forward, I've noticed Scott's become keener on what captures my attention, often cheering for me to chase topics that I've become fixated on. Why not write about that? He'd ask, and I'd clam up in response, feeling paralyzed at the thought of allowing my ideas to be so widely exposed. Initially, Scott assumed that I would want to return to making videos on YouTube about animation, or publishing poems and essays in literary journals like I'd planned to when I graduated college. That's not what I want anymore. And it's taken me a good while to come to terms with this. I'm still learning and striving to figure out what the next creative goal should be. What feels the most true to me now is that I enjoy creating things, like islands, to hide away in, rather than making them tourist destinations. I get to share them quietly, in private conversation. So much of my day is filled with tasks for my career or life that I do not frequently allow myself the freedom to play. Still, I've tried to start making space to create new ways, like baking. Crafting and cultivating new recipes to try and enjoy has been equally rewarding as writing a good poem. I still write, too. Scott even gifted me with a beautiful typewriter for this last Christmas. I've been using it to type out funny comments in response to his videos. I'm looking forward to writing some letters to friends who don't live nearby. It's challenges like these that have allowed my creativity to flex, but not feel like it's on display for everyone to see. Leaving room for creative endeavors is what I need to keep reminding myself, because I am good at it. I just need to give myself a chance to try. It's like I'm immediately itch my face.
When Shizuku first wanders into the antique shop, Shiro is at the finish line of restoring an intricate grandfather clock. This clock tells a wonderfully sad story of a dwarven king and a beautiful fairy. The dwarven king works tirelessly mining underground, while the fairy lives above earth, cursed to take the form of a sheep. It's only at midnight when the fairy is briefly restored to her proper form. At this fleeting moment, the dwarven king peeks out to catch a glimpse of his love. The two can never be together fully, but they take advantage of what time they have to appreciate each other before the fairy transforms back into the sheep and the dwarven king returns to the mine. Sometimes this is how it can feel to have a relationship with another creative individual. You both do your own thing for long stretches of time and are only momentarily released from your spells to spend a sliver of time with one another. Some of my best friends are other creators who I only talk to like once every 3 months, but I think it's even harder when the two people are in distinct creative fields. Aside from general encouragement, Seiji can't directly help Shizuku write any more than the sheep can help the dwarven king mine. There's a deep, frustrating sense of separation there. Whisper of the Heart uses this idea of separated loves throughout the story. The dwarven king and the fairy, the baron and the baroness, Shiro and his lost love, Louise, and of course, Shizuku and Seiji, who separate when he travels to Italy for at least 2 months, but at most 10 years. But the day before he leaves, Seiji wanders up to Shizuku, who's sitting in the library. She's at the start of researching for her book, and she's so focused that she almost doesn't notice him. He doesn't even try to get her attention to let her know that he's there, either. When she finally does see him, he assures her that she doesn't need to stop working on her book on his account. Eventually, the clock will strike midnight, and the two can give each other their undivided attention. But right now, he sits quietly across from her, just happy to be in her presence. After their 2 months of Seiji studying violin making and Shizuku writing, the two are reunited. Seiji, as the dwarven king, looks up towards Shizuku's window as the fairy who has been released from her spell after finally finishing her book. But unlike the characters on the antique clock, these two are not destined to stay apart. Seiji's mentor told him that he could be a great violin maker someday, but he's not at that level to fully commit to it yet. Similarly, Shizuku has discovered her capacity to write, but now she needs to learn how to polish that writing. But rather than throwing herself back into the same relentless pursuit, she decides to take a break. For now. And that's the happy ending that's afforded to these characters. They aren't revealed to be innate masters of their crafts, but they are told that they have potential. Like a precious gem hidden inside a geode, it takes time and work to bring out something truly extraordinary. And like trying to pedal the weight of 2 people up the steepest hill in the city, it's not something you need to do on your own, even if you feel like you must.
If I'm going with you, I'm going to help you.
Shizuku and Seiji are still determined to learn and grow in their passions, but at least for right now, they choose not to suffer for their art. And the film doesn't think any less of them for it either. If anything, it celebrates that idea, saying, yes, some folks do chase their dreams so fiercely and so loud that it drowns out everything else in their life all the time, always. But others may wish to follow a softer, quieter path toward their passion, guided steadily by a gentle whisper of their heart. Simply put, gosh, I love this movie. I have not seen another film that captures what I feel like pretty regularly as a creator. I also changed my clothes for this last bit because I was tired of wearing the same thing for 4 days in a row. It takes me a while to film videos, okay? And look, I know that I talk a lot on this channel about what it's like being a creator. I make videos about what it's like to make videos and be in a sort of artistic space on the internet. And many of my favorite pieces of art are from artists who are using their art to talk about what it's like to make their art. A musical about writing a musical. A performance about performing. A film about wanting to make a great film. These are the pieces that move me the most, personally. And as much as I try to talk about other things on this channel so that it doesn't become annoying how much I always return to the same idea, I inevitably will always return to it because being a creator is what I know best. I have spent a third of my life making stuff online. I started this YouTube channel when I was 20, and now I'm, oh my god, I'm 30. These ones don't make noise, so I'll just have to put it in post. And hey, if you want to hear more of our thoughts about Whisper of the Heart, Emily and I recorded a bonus video of us talking off the cuff about all of the stuff we didn't have time to say in this already very long video essay. Stuff like this.
And so by the time we watched it again, it was just like, oh yeah, this is like very confirming to me.
Ooh, what could we be talking about? Also, since so many of you liked watching Emily and I eat disgusting Scooby-Doo sandwiches recently, there's also a video of us completely failing at making Scooby snacks. Both of those videos are exclusively available on my streaming service, Nebula, which is also partnering with CuriosityStream. Hi, I'm... Hello. Didn't realize they booked 2 of us for this, but okay. You've heard me talk about Nebula before. It's a place where creators like myself are actually allowed to be creative. As I keep saying, the true version of this video with a lot more Whisper of the Heart footage is up on Nebula because I couldn't post it to YouTube without getting dozens of copyright strikes. And those bonus videos are also there for you to watch because I just don't think they do great on YouTube's algorithm. But I don't have to worry about either of those things on Nebula. You want to take this next part? Where did he...
Where did the other guy go? Well, so Nebula is a great way to support your favorite creators, and we are thrilled to be partnering with CuriosityStream, the #1 place for thousands of documentaries and nonfiction titles on the internet. Check out this deal. Are you watching?
Yes.
Oh my God. Is this close enough to watch the deal?
Yeah.
It's fine. If you sign up with the link below, not only do you get access to CuriosityStream, but you'll also get Nebula for free as long as you're a CuriosityStream member. And look, I hear ya. Picking up 2 new streaming services, that sounds like it would cost a lot. Well, it doesn't. So.
Doesn't cost a lot.
That's correct. CuriosityStream is giving you nerds a discount of 26% off your annual CuriosityStream plan, which means you get both CuriosityStream and Nebula for less than $15 a year. Not per month, per year. I always have to specify that because the deal sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Not only will you now have tons of interesting and informative videos to watch, but signing up also helps support educational creators.
I like that.
Yeah, me too. I think that's the most you've opened up this whole time. And, you know, I know we've only known each other for a minute and a half to 2 minutes, however long we've been doing this, but I don't know, is it weird that I consider you one of my closest friends?
I'm on a green screen.
Okay.
What's
happening? What?
Green screen.
We've talked a lot about how artistic passion is almost this compulsion to be creative, and there's actually a really interesting episode of Secrets of the Brain on CuriosityStream that interviews a painter who has sudden artistic output syndrome that causes people who have never done anything artistic before to have a spontaneous and uncontrollable urge to create art. Super interesting to learn what happens in our brains when we pursue creativity. So click or tap that link in the description today to get both CuriosityStream and Nebula for just $14.79 per year. That is 26% off. Once again, click the link in the description or go to curiositystream.com/NerdSync. Clicking on that link really does help out my channel.
Our channel.
Thank you so much for watching. If you are new to my videos, this is sort of the thing that I do. I take a piece of media that I'm interested in and I talk about it for a really long time, and hopefully along the way we learn a little bit about the world, and maybe, perhaps, a little bit about ourselves. So if that sounds good to you, then subscribe and turn on the notifications to become a wonderful nerd. That's what I call my fans and followers, because it's cute, dang it. If you are feeling extra generous, please support me on Patreon. I would love to hit 1,000 patrons this year with names like A Filthy Casual, Amanda Trisdale, Brendan, Christopher Lang, DeCassowary, Eric Ketchum, Eric Totoro Pato, Jacob Rundell, Jonathan and Megan Pearson, Jonathan Lanowski, Carl Bachman, A. Runarson, Nailed It, Mar Sottledine, Pete Temple, Rebecca Moss, William Tolotzin, and the rest of the wonderful nerds who support me over at patreon.com/NerdSync. Link in the description. My name is Scott, reminding you to explore your favorite art through curiosity and vulnerability. See ya.